Welcome back to the Sandy Trail. We are in the last episode ever of the show Sanditon, episode 6 of season 3. The time has come. I hope you're doing well. I got a really nice tan. We went on a Caribbean cruise from Miami last week and came back. Got sick, been working from home this week, and I'm like, wait, there's one more episode left to go over for Sanditon. I hope you enjoy this review and the next 3 to wrap up the show for the last time. We should get started. Took a moment for me to try to remember where we left off. It's been a while filming these reviews. Mary is still sick. She hasn't wake up yet. She still lie down on her bed, basically like a deathbed. I know it's bad to say that, but it looks like she is literally dying on her bed. And nothing has changed. Everyone is still concerned. Very sweet of Charlotte to stay by her side throughout the night, and in the morning, Charlotte, had that hope, like, oh, is she awake? But she's not. Tom is freaking out. His wife can die, right? And if she does die, that will change his life for the rest of his life. That's something that he doesn't desire. He wants his wife back, and he wants to have that second chance to make it right with her and to apologize to her and to listen to her proposal for the old town, and basically just to make her dreams come true in the plans and dreams that she had for the old town and the future of Sanditon. The pastor came, Mr. Hankins, his sister came, Miss Hankins. I'm sorry, it's been a while. I'm like, what are their names? But they arrived to the Parker house, of course, to offer prayers and some comfort and support to the family. And then the doctor arrived. He came into the room. He was already there, but he came into the room, and of course, as a doctor, you give that perspective, right? From a science perspective, medical knowledge. And then he said, the only way to get out of this bad situation is if Mr. Parker has a miracle. So it's that transition from, okay, science, medicine, did everything that it could to try to save Mary and to help her with her health, her declining health. But right now, the last resort is the miracle, and basically, religion, faith comes into the picture. And I thought it was an interesting change of perspective on the doctor, because throughout the season, there has been that competition between Mr. Hankins and the doctor, like, oh, science is better than religion, no, religion is better than science, that conflict between these two men. So I thought it was an interesting, different perspective that changed for Dr. Buse. He's like, I did everything that I heard. The only thing that that needs to happen, the last resort, is basically a miracle from God. The next scene is Agnes Harmon, Miss Harmon. She's looking over the checks that were made to her from Lady Monroe. Basically, Lady Monroe paid her off to be silent and to basically walk out of Georgiana's life, so Lady Monroe can have the full control over the marriage, over the wedding of Georgiana and Harry. Evil mother-in-law, I would say. I wouldn't have Lady Monroe as my future mother-in-law. Like, no thank. And I'm so surprised in a way that Miss Harmon, like, looking over like these money, like, you just found your daughter. I wouldn't even like waste my time like looking at these money, like as a mom, like you should automatically say no and be like, no, I want to be in my daughter's life, like no thank you to your money. We have heard the Monroe family is having financial difficulties, right? So like where this money came from, you know? And it shows like the amount of checks in her hand in the scene. It showed that Lady Monroe really, really, really want Agnes to basically leave Georgiana for good for the rest of Georgiana's life.
This was always my favorite time of the day. Before the world is awakened, when all is at peace, and time seems suspended.
They spend the whole night talking and enjoying each other's company, and now they're walking along the shore, very early morning. So they had quite the night together, and everything is looking up for them so far.
That sounds rather well rehearsed.
I've never met anyone I wanted to share this with. Until now.
I think it's really cute though that we get to see Samuel like get so invested in the woman that he really likes, to the point that he took her to the shore and explained to her like, you know, this is one of his favorite things to do. He's very open to her, and I think it's really cute, and I totally ship this couple. He is totally in love with her. Is that too soon to say? He is falling for her pretty quickly, very deeply. He admitted to her that he never showed, you know, this spot that he goes to anyone until Lady Susan came along, and she kissed him. As a response back to him, like she admired that, like she felt honored that she's the first person, the first woman, for Samuel to show this place and to tell her like, you know, this is where he liked to go in the early morning, his go-to favorite spot, and he never shared that with anyone until she came along. This couple is really cute, and one note I will say though is that I wish we had more time to see where the future, you know, go for them, like the wedding and the happily ever after, you know. It would have been nice to see a little bit more of this story.
I've been so preoccupied with making money, securing this wretched hotel, I have neglected and ignored her. I didn't even take the time to read her proposals.
Mary is still asleep. The doctor did say though the night before, like, you know, the night is like the big test. If she's still alive after the night passes by, there's still some hope left. But now it's a new day, right? And then if she did not wake up and then the night comes again, the worries start to increase again. They're like, okay, if she doesn't wake up today, is she gonna wake up tomorrow? Like, you know, how many days will she be asleep on this bed? It doesn't look good. Everyone is waiting for a miracle. They are getting helpless, hopeless as the day goes by, especially for Tom. And Tom is explaining to Charlotte how he feels, and he feels really bad. He starts to feel guilty about the situation that Mary is in.
To hear her thoughts for the old town. If she could only tell me now that I might put things right.
I could accompany you to the old town. Explain her thoughts.
Would you, Charlotte?
Charlotte, I can't complain. She's very supportive toward Tom. She listened to him. She shows support, especially by offering to him, like, hey, I can, you know, go with you to the old town. And basically, Charlotte giving more input and some background information on what Mary wants for the old town and letting Tom know about that.
Mary also spoke of a sick child.
Dora.
Yeah, let us go there now. It won't take long. I just feel quite helpless here. At least, my dearest Mary.
She feels that if they didn't get into a fight with one another and didn't disagree about the hotel, Tom, had that assumption, like, if we didn't get into a fight, like, this would have had happened.
It might be a small step towards making amends.
We will keep watch.
Good idea. Instead of, standing around in the bedroom, I think would be a nice change of scenery for Tom, just to focus on other things, just to keep his mind occupied while waiting for Mary to hopefully wake up very soon. Also, this is a way for him to make it right to Mary, regardless if she makes it or not. He probably thinking like, oh hey, you know what? I'm wrong. My wife is right. Like, let me start fixing it for her, and maybe she will wake up and he can tell her the good news of what he started doing for the old town.
It's kind of you to come, Miss Hayward. Mr. Parker, you had no need to think of us at such a time.
Mary will be so glad to know Dora's recovered.
The next scene is Tom visiting the old town with Charlotte. I'm sure this is the first time we see him visit the old town this season. So this is something new for us, as the audience. But I do want to point out Dora, she was the one that got sick and Mary took care of her. The way that Tom looked at that little girl, I don't know if this makes sense, but it's just a random thought. He probably looking down at this little girl and remind himself like Mary did like one of the most noble things like anyone could do. Like, his wife took care of that little girl when that little girl is not even Mary's daughter. It just shows how much love and care, like a big heart that Mary had to care for the family and to care for Dora when she was very sick to the point that she could die. That sacrifice that Mary did in helping this little girl to feel better, knowing that Mary could get sick too and die from this really bad disease that's going around in town. But it's nice to see Dora alive and well, and Mary played a huge role in that.
I just hope Mrs. Parker will be as fortunate. She's always shown us such kindness. I often say to the children, I don't know what I should do without her.
Even though Mary is on her deathbed, Tom showing up in the old town, to me, I think that speaks high volume. He does care, he does care for people, but sometimes money, greed, bad influence, blind his vision, his eyesight. That's what happened in season 3. He wanted to support Mary, but he heard that he can make more money if they built a bigger hotel and with a better view of the water and all that. And that blinded him from the truth, and that's what Mary tried to open his eyes to. Like, hey, like, it's not about money, it's about benefiting the town as well. Like, we need to care for these people too. Like, we cannot do business when it's harm the livelihoods of these people, especially in the old town area. But now that he is showing up in the scene in the old town, I think it just speaks high volume of who he is as a man. He making it right. Like, he realized he made a huge mistake and he is correcting himself, and that takes a lot of gut and confidence to do that. To make it right, especially in the public eye, especially in the business eye, in Mrs. Wilkins, I'm sure that she appreciates very much that they showed up again in the old town, especially for Tom, because she's been complaining about Tom. She's like telling Mary, like, your husband is building a hotel, he is kicking us out. Like, she had that negative impression of Tom since the very beginning, and now Tom is in the scene standing in front of Mr. Wilkins. I'm sure it's a good sign that Tom wants to make it right, and I think that takes a lot of courage to do that. You don't want people to talk bad about you in public. Mary, I mean, she's a wonderful woman. Once again, like, she didn't have to do this to help and care and support financially to the family. That's why Mrs. Wilkins admire Mary. She appreciates Mary so much. Even though Mrs. Wilkins doesn't work for the Parker family anymore, Mary maintained that close relationship, that close contact with Mrs. Wilkins, and see Mrs. Wilkins get married and have children, and Mary had been very supportive toward Mrs. Wilkins and her family, like, ever since the beginning. And the way that Mrs. Wilkins talk about Mary and praising her and complimenting her, it got to the core of Tom's heart, and he got a bit emotional. He's like, my wife is a great woman, and he cannot imagine living this life without her.
Mrs. Wilkins, if there is ever anything you should need for the children, or medicine or food, you shall have it, Mrs. Wilkins. You have my word.
Nice big gesture, right? But at the same time, for me myself, I feel like he's saying that to her, also because he feels guilty. He's probably thinking like, oh, like, I was about to like destroy the family home and life and take away their livelihood and the way of living, and he trying to make it up to Mrs. Wilkins and her family, and he said those words in this scene. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, that's basically he is giving donation, like he's giving financial support to the family, and that's a very big and kind offer that he just made to her.
Be so kind as to give Mrs. Parker this, sir. Tell her we are...
And that was a nice gesture from her back to Tom. I think it's also a sign of appreciation. Of course, she appreciates what Tom just said, what he offered to her and her family, financial support, and she gave up her frost necklace to Tom, and it shows how much love and respect and admiration that she had for Mary and everything that Mary had done for Mrs. Wilkins and her family.
Praying for her.
And that frost has a deep meaning, right? A deep symbol, especially if you believe in that faith, believing that in the power of prayer and just hoping for the best and having faith that Mary will wake up very soon. Tom, he's still in that emotional stage, and hopefully he feels a little bit better, by visiting the old town and talking to Mrs. Wilkins and just to make it right with her. Hopefully after that, Mary wakes up. The rehearsal for the wedding ceremony between Lady Denham and Mr. Price, they were talking about the word, when you marry someone, like, you are yoked together, like, to become one. And Lady Denham, like, no. You can still sense that independent spirit from her. Is she ready for a wedding? Is she ready to get married again? Is she ready for that? For myself, like, I'm like, she is totally not ready. Like, this is a huge commitment, and she has been single for a good while now, and this is a big adjustment for her. Like, does she really want to be with him for the rest of her life? Like, does she see herself with a lifelong partner. Also, like, who's gonna die first? I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be mean, but if she does marry Mr. Price, right, and if he dies first, for example, then she will have to go through that heartbreak again of losing a spouse again. Random thought right there, right at the very moment. It's a lot of things to think about with this wedding ceremony. It's a lot to process, especially for her. She maybe rather elope. Maybe she'd rather not do this at all. Mr. Price, you can sense that he is 100% in with this wedding. But Lady Denham, there's just something holding her back. Like, in the front, like, she looks like she excited that she's going through this wedding planning and this rehearsal with the pastor. But this conversation in the scene, you can sense that there's something holding her back, and she's not 100%. Like, her mindset is not 100% in this wedding. Last but not least, I want to talk one more thing about this scene is Edward. Good point from the pastor. What you sow is what you reap. Edward, he kind of technically wanted to elope Augusta, and that didn't work out. Very funny that Mr. Price put Edward on the spot about his recent disgrace with his relationship to Augusta. But Edward mentioned an interesting fact though. Once Mr. Price married Lady Denham, their money's linked together, and Edward will basically have nothing, nothing to his name, no money. That would be an interesting adjustment for Edward, right? And I just thought, like, it's really sad though at the same time. Like, Edward is a grown man, and he'd not be able to support himself, you know what I mean? And it's really sad that he doesn't want to correct himself and be a better person and be a better man for that woman that he is destined to be with.
She will not eat, she will not sleep. It is like having a phantom in the house.
Augusta is still in that depression stage after that really major breakup with Edward. I can totally understand. It's hard, like when you get rejection or a breakup, like you don't see it clearly that you have a better future without that person. You know what I mean? That there's a better person for you out there. She doesn't see that right now. She's just going through that process of just being sad and heartbroken. It's tough to put yourself back out there and to stand up for yourself and just keep your head high and move on. It's really hard to do so. And her family is very concerned. This is like the first breakup that Augusta ever gone through.
I shall never fall in love. It seems a beastly business.
It is, Leo. Avoid it if you can.
Probably like one of the top 3 lines of season 3, and probably one of the top 5 lines in the show history ever of Sanditon. Leo's line, like, she nailed it. And the way she said it though, it's like, it's a totally Leo personality, I just love how she said it. But it is true though, and the reaction from the adults in the scene is so funny. Samuel is loving his relationship with Lady Susan, right? And he tried not to laugh at what Leo said in the scene. Instead, he smiled. Alexander, he suffered many heartbreaks with Charlotte, so he agreed with Leo, and he had that serious face. And Mrs. Whitley, she didn't really have much of a reaction. She was just like looking toward Augusta, very concerned for her. But we can totally, all of us would totally agree with what Leo said.
What do I say to Augusta? How do I reassure her?
I can offer you nothing. Fear at that age, I was more often the cause of such suffering than the victim.
Oh, but now, of course, those days are long behind you.
Alexander, of course, he has the heart to care and to love and to support Augusta. This is the first for him too. While this is the first breakup for Augusta, this is the first of Alexander going through that parenting situation, like how do I comfort my child, my niece, and going through her first breakup. And she is a girl, you know, like, and he's a guy, like how can he support her in a way that he understands her as a woman, you know? If Charlotte was there, she would totally step in and give Augusta some support and comfort and that same understanding and perspective of how a woman feel during a breakup or a heartbreak, post-breakup stage.
They may yet be. Strange as it sounds, I've lately found my thoughts turning to marriage.
Interesting how Samuel mentioned about his old dating life when he was much younger. You know, we never saw what he was like when he was younger, but right now at this age, at this present moment, this stage that he is in his life, he's a gentleman. He is treating Lady Susan very nice and very romantic. He seemed to be a nice man, right? A nice boyfriend to Lady Susan. Once again, these two men, like, they don't really understand women completely, you know what I mean? So it would be nice if Charlotte was there to give a helping hand in dealing with Augusta's situation.
Well, she must be a remarkable woman to have tamed your wayward heart.
She is astounding.
I'm glad for you, Sam. I am.
This is really sweet. You can see that Alexander is happy for his brother. Samuel, he most likely a different man back in his past, right? Especially when it comes to dating women. And seeing Samuel like grow up and be open to the idea of love and be committed and just go out into the field and find that right person, and to have a change perspective on marriage and spending the rest of his life with that special person. Alexander sees that change in his brother, and he's very happy, very supportive of Samuel in being in a relationship with Lady Susan. It's just a nice, different side of Samuel that Alexander sees in season 3. While Alexander is still technically single and, you know, suffered many heartbreaking moments with Charlotte in season 2 and 3, at least his brother Samuel is happy.
I'm increasingly of the belief that we're not meant to walk this life alone. If recent events have proved anything, it's that Leo and Augusta are in need of a mother.
Thought you'd abandoned hope of Miss Heybourne.
I'm not thinking of her.
At the same time, Alexander is still thinking about his future and the importance of having that motherly role model for Augusta and Leonora and any future children that he may have with his new wife. And Samuel, of course, he brought up Charlotte and Alexander, like, no, like, don't even mention her. But we all know that Alexander still thinks about Charlotte from time to time, especially Charlotte is still in town in Sanditon, watching, looking after Mary. But yeah, it's a big decision, right? It's a Charlotte, it's a Lydia, it's a different woman, like, it's a big decision. He doesn't know yet, though, that Charlotte called off her wedding too well, so that would be an interesting storyline right there. He thinks that he doesn't have a chance with Charlotte anymore, but he doesn't know just yet that Charlotte is technically now single.
Was that not a most peculiar dinner last night?
Yes.
I suspect Mrs. Parker took ill purely to spite you.
No, before that.
This family discussion is really interesting. Lydia continues on with her sarcasm and making fun of her mom. But the next topic is very, very, I think, in my opinion, disrespectful and not welcoming to hear.
I'm afraid I found your so-called mother-in-law to be rather disconcerting, Harry. Did you not find her manner suspicious?
Count yourself lucky Mr. Colburn's parents are dead, Lydia, and immune from judgment.
It's so true, what Harry said. He's like, I have to deal with this crap. His mom, in my opinion, not the best mom and not the best mother-in-law to have. She loved to meddle. That's the word. She loved to meddle in her children relationship, and it's not good. Like, once you marry off, like, you should not be meddling with the marriage relationship. Like, you need to stay out of it. But yeah, Lady Monroe's basically talking bad about Georgiana mom. It's not a good sign. And she just met her, you know, and she's judging Miss Harmon and just not giving her a chance to introduce herself and not giving the chance to be friends, you know, both of those moms, mother-in-laws. It's not good. It's really sad, and Lady Monroe already gave those money to Miss Harmon, and we saw that earlier in this episode. And I assume Harry and Lydia didn't know that Lady Monroe basically bought Miss Harmon to be kicked out of the family.
Still, let us not dwell on such doleful matters when we have so much to celebrate. The wedding of the season, Harry.
So you keep reminding me.
And Lydia, saved from the ignominy of spinsterhood in the very nick of time.
The wedding of the season, it would have been if it was under the right circumstance, but it's a messy situation. Instead, Harry is not in love with Georgiana. He wants to be with Arthur. Georgiana is using this marriage as a business relationship. There's that guy Otis, you know, still flying around like he is open and single, but Georgiana doesn't want him at the moment.
You'll excuse me. I have arranged to go riding today.
Well, we need hardly ask with whom.
It's a lot of pressure on Harry, and Lydia is just like so much pressure on Harry, and Lydia just like walking away like, oh, I have something to go to, like I'm gonna go horse riding, and Lady Monroe like doesn't even like give not even a spoon of question or worry for Lydia. Like she automatically assumed that Lydia is going to hang out with Alexander and ride horses. And Lydia like, okay, no question asked. I'm gonna hurry off and, you know, go about my day. And we're gonna talk about this one, that moment when Lydia just walked away to go horse riding. We will talk about it later in this episode. I think it's one of those moments where the first time you watch it, like, oh, she just, you know, go off riding. But if you really think about it, like, is it really Alexander? Or is it someone else? So that's another thing we're gonna go back in circle later in this episode. So Harry, definitely more pressure on him, right? He is the son in the family, he is the boy in the family. He is the one that's gonna carry the family name into the future and producing children. Lydia, like her wedding to whoever she wants to marry, it's important too, but she's gonna carry her future husband name, you know. So it's more pressure on Harry, and he's not too happy. He doesn't look happy. Once he get out of this situation, if he does, he's gonna be like the happiest man on the planet.
You're absolutely right, of course, my dear. You always have been.
very sweet of Tom keeping his promise to give the cross necklace to Mary and place it in her hand.
I should have ignored Mr. Price and listened to you from the very start. Now I can see it all so clearly. But I will give everything up, all of it.
He admitted that he made a huge mistake, and he is starting to make it right with Mary, even though she's not fully awake just yet. But it just shows that he really wanted to make it right so badly, and he anticipating Mary to wake up really soon so she can hear it from him loud and clear. Everyone else is in the room supporting Tom and Mary. It's been a while, you know, like she's been on that bed for at least a night or two. It's serious and it's not good.
If only God would spare you.
Do you notice her forefinger moved? So that was like the first sign, like, okay, she's gonna be okay, right? Like, they wouldn't do this to us. Like, they wouldn't kill Mary off like that. Like, don't kill her character off. But that's like the beginning of life in her, and it was a good sign. Tom, he basically, you know, begging for a miracle, and I'm sure to himself he begging to God, like, please give my wife another chance, please give me another chance to make it right with her when she's alive. Mary wakes up and everyone rejoices. The best news ever, especially this is the last episode ever of Sanditon. They are the ultimate couple, I would say. You know, every relationship is not perfect. Every marriage is not perfect. This couple, like, they go through the ups and downs ever since the beginning of this show. And it's really nice that Mary survived. She made it through, and she is feeling better. She is awake. She is alive. And, you know, there's nothing more that... Oops, sorry. There's nothing more... that Tom wants than just seeing his wife wake up in the very moment and say his name and be able to hug her. And that second chance at life, that second chance at his marriage and to make it right with her.
My mother will be overjoyed to hear that Mary's fever has broken.
What a privilege it was to witness the love they bear each other.
Tom would be quite lost without her.
Is that not what a marriage should be?
Once again, Tom and Mary are the ultimate couple of the show. And they went through a lot, and Charlotte and Georgiana seen all of it, you know, ever since they came to know about the family. They seen the love that Mary and Tom shared with one another. They seen the imperfection of the relationship between Tom and Mary, and just that huge obstacle that they just overcame, that really bad disease, sickness that Mary overcame, and the second chance at life, and a second chance at their marriage. And they are a couple that apparently Charlotte and Georgiana look up to, and I'm pretty sure it's a relationship that these two girls desire for in the future.
Just because you called off your wedding doesn't mean I should call off mine. I know I'm making the right decision for my future.
What about love?
I'm kind of like a little bit icky about this. So Georgiana, she was always team Alexander. She never supported the idea of Charlotte being with Ralph, especially that look on her face at the end of season 2 when Charlotte announced her engagement to Ralph at Allison's wedding. Georgiana was like, oh, heck no. And how did Charlotte, like, hey, maybe, like, you know, Ralph is not the right guy. Like, are you sure you want to be with Ralph, not Alexander? And Charlotte finally had the confidence to break it off with Ralph, and now she is single. And now Charlotte is trying to do that encouragement back to Georgiana once again in the scene. And Charlotte's right, and we know it too. But Georgiana, like, kind of, like, have this attitude, like, you know, you're not telling me, you know, what to do. Like, you're not telling me to do something that I don't want to do. To me, like, Georgiana really doesn't want to listen and doesn't want to hear it. Like, she knows about it. Like, she heard Charlotte, you know, discouraging her from marrying Harry, but she doesn't want to hear it again. I thought, you know, Georgiana had, like, a little bit of an attitude in this scene. Charlotte meant well, and I understand where, you know, Charlotte was coming from and what she is saying to Georgiana in this scene, but Georgiana already confirmed her decision. Like, she is definitely going through with the plan to have this business relationship in marrying Harry.
I will have my mother's love. That is enough.
You know when someone gives you an advice and you know it deep down, like they are right and you are wrong. That's how I feel for Georgiana in this scene. She's like, I have enough. Like, I have my mom back. Like, that is enough. And you can see on her face, like, she is half lying. It would be great to have true love, you know, not only her mom, but a man that she's truly happy with and love him truthfully and 100%. She doesn't love Harry truthfully. Honestly, she doesn't love him, and she doesn't want to be with him 100%. Like, you have to be fully committed to the person that you're marrying, and she's not in the wedding with Harry. It's a fake relationship, and Charlotte knows it too, and Arthur knows about it too. So Georgiana is basically making, like, the biggest mistake of her life, and hopefully she changes her mind and make it right, you know, allowing Harry to be happy again, you know. This wedding of Harry and Georgiana is torturing Harry. Like, he really doesn't want to, but he cherished his friendship with Georgiana, and he had that respect for her, so he agreed to the idea of having this business relationship with Georgiana. The next scene, Lady Susan seemed so happy. You know, she had that great morning with Samuel, and then he a letter, and we all know it's from the King himself. And it's not a good sign. It's not a good sign for the relationship of Lady Susan and Samuel. And she really didn't look too happy in receiving a letter from the king. So, the king might want her back. The next scene, Georgiana came back home and her mom is nowhere to be found. And that doesn't look good for Georgiana. So, for now, it looks like Miss Harmon took the money and left Sanditon.
That must have taken great courage. I cannot bear to think of the pain I've caused Ralph. I couldn't live a lie, Mary. I couldn't make a promise before God when I...
Many updates for the past 48 hours at least. Charlotte told Mary that she broke off her engagement to Ralph. Mary's like a second mom to Charlotte, so she's very comfortable and open to Mary and telling her about things happening in Charlotte's life, including her love life.
When I'm in love with someone else. Mr. Colburn, perhaps. I've seen the way you look at him. Does he know?
Everyone knows it, like, so obvious. Mary knows about it too. She's like, heck yeah, like, you go, girl. Mary can see the sparks between Alexander and Charlotte, and she's very supportive of Charlotte being in love with Alexander.
That you are no longer to be married? Not yet. Then why are you sitting here with me?
I was also thinking about Sydney. Mary was a supporter of Sydney and Charlotte to be together after that sad death of Sydney. It's very nice of Mary to be happy again for Charlotte and finding love again and supporting Charlotte to be with Alexander, knowing that, you know, her brother-in-law could have been with Charlotte. In my opinion, I think we should thank God that we have great medicine, great science, especially in today's time. Anyway, these two men, they cannot get along with one another. It will be an interesting future holiday dinner if Miss Hinkin does end up with the doctor. Hopefully, Mr. Hinkin gives them a chance to be a couple, but as of now, it's a sad struggle that Miss Hinkin is going through. Like, of course, she wants her brother to support her relationship with any man that, you know, she wants to be with. It's a tough situation, though. Then we see Georgiana running out to try to find her mom. She is confused. She's like, what the heck is going on? Like, there's no way my mom would disappear from me like this. Like, after many years of not being able to find each other. It's, you know, a lot of question for Georgiana. She's like, did my mom really abandon me once again?
Forgive me. It's not often I find myself struggling to find the right words.
They continue to hang out with each other even more, but this one is after Lady Susan received a letter, a mysterious letter, but we all know by this point it was a letter from the king, so she had to tell Samuel eventually, right?
But don't you think it's strange how circumstances have conspired to bring us together? A man and a woman who had both vowed they had no interest in love or marriage.
So this is like an introduction of Samuel admitting his feelings to her. He thinking about, you know, ever since they first met and the moments they had ever since, and just how the universe works in their favor in meeting each other and to be together technically as a couple.
And yet, I must say, the time I have spent in your company has brought me to the point that I must renounce that vow.
My dear Samuel, I must stop you before you go any further.
Technically, it's like a pre-proposal that he just did. He wanted to marry her, and she stopped him. It doesn't look good, you know? Like, it's changed from positive to negative now, and she just doesn't want him to get hurt really bad, so that's why she stopped him.
Do you think it is possible that we just got caught up in a moment? A lovely moment, unquestionably, but a moment nonetheless, when time briefly stopped for us.
She is saying these things because she received a letter from the king, and it sounds like the king wants her back, and she feels conflicted, and here's the king, you know? Like, king tend to get, you know, everything that he wants. So she's like, okay, I have to go back to London and, you know, bow down to the king and make him happy again. She doesn't know how to bring that news to Samuel, like, hey, I received a letter, like, I can't be with you, I have to go back to the king. Yeah, it's not a great situation to be in.
A moment.
I'm expected back in London.
It's getting intense a little bit. She told him about the London part, but she didn't tell him just yet about, you know, who wrote that letter to her.
No matter. I shall call on you there.
I think it is better if we accept this for what it was.
And he's not giving up on her. He's like, okay, I can leave Sanditon and be with you in London, like, no issue. And he was living in London when Alexander came to London to get him to help with Georgiana case.
And return to our lives. I will always think of you with great fondness.
I think he got the indirect message. Okay, so she had to go back to London, return back to her life. So he probably started thinking like, okay, the king wants her back. And that's her, you know? Like, she picked the other guy instead of Samuel. So she's like, oh man, I'm not good enough for her.
As will I, my lady.
But what a way for a breakup, right? She's like, I can't be with you, but I'm gonna think of you, like, in a positive way. And I'm like, you're breaking his heart. Like, girl, like, don't even say it. Like, you said it and it made it worse for him. It's a tough breakup. He was totally open, very vulnerable with her, and it hurt so bad when she broke up with him in this scene. It showed that, you know, she feel more toward the king. Like, she rather like meet the expectation of the king. I mean, the king is the king, like, he is the leader. So it's kind of like tough, you know, like, she didn't want to like disrespect the king and get in trouble, but she had the right and the freedom to be with whoever she wanted to be. In the way that the king treated her, like, I wouldn't even like go back to him. Like, screw you, right? Like, I'm with Samuel and he's way better than you. I love this next scene between Arthur, Tom, and Mr. Price. Tom is finally manning up, like, he's finally stepping up, and he's like, no, I'm out. And Mr. Price like tried to control him, tried to convince him to stay on board with the hotel. And here's the thing though, Mr. Price, he is not from Sanditon. Like, he doesn't know the people, he doesn't understand the heart of Sanditon. Tom, I assume he's been living in Sanditon for many, many years, maybe ever since he was a kid. And this is his people, like, this is his home, and he knows better than Mr. Price. And Mr. Price trying to like take the heart of Sanditon away from the people in Sanditon. And Tom like, no, like, these are my people, like, I know them, I understand them, like, I'm gonna look after them and take care of them. And Mr. Price like, you know, whatever. And the way that Tom mentioned about, you know, more importantly, he is a husband and he is a father, it seemed that Mr. Price doesn't understand that side of Tom. Mr. Price, he is not a husband yet to Lady Denham. I assume he doesn't have a kid, so maybe he is not a dad. So he doesn't have that same mentality, that same understanding of why Tom is saying these things in this scene. Like, Mr. Price is like all about business and money and just all about himself in a way, you know. And Tom like, no, like, these are people that we are affecting. We are affecting their lifestyle, their homes, if we do move forward with the hotel. And Tom like, no, like, I need to step out. Good for Tom. He finally, you know, straightened it out. He finally made the right move. And it was really nice though that Arthur was there next to him for support. And the way that Mr. Price left and then Tom and Arthur look around Sanditon, like, they know that they have this like purpose, you know, of looking after the town.
How is Mrs. Parker, Miss Heywood?
I'm glad to say she's recovering well. Thank you, Mrs. Wheatley.
What a mercy. I expect you'll be returning home again now.
As a matter of fact, that is what I wish to discuss with Mr. Colburn.
Technically, per Mary's request, Charlotte made the move to go to Heybourne Park to meet up with Alexander out of the blue. She had this idea of this romantic gesture into telling Alexander I'm single, I want to be with you, right?
I'm afraid Mr. Colburn is out riding this morning.
Miss Heywood!
You come to check on Augusta?
How is she?
Inconsolable.
So maybe Lydia did went out riding with Alexander, maybe not. Once again, we will go back to Lydia later in this episode, but you can see that Charlotte's face changed when Mr. Whitley mentioned that Alexander is out riding, because there is a possibility that Alexander is pursuing a relationship with Lydia, and they do have that special common interest in horses and riding horses. I love Leonora. She just had that spicy, sassy personality. She just say it as it is. And it would be a lovely dynamic to see Charlotte be her new mom, I can totally picture that. But Augusta, of course, Charlotte is concerned for Augusta. Augusta is just MIA right now in this episode. She's just being by herself and just, away from everyone else.
I assume Lady de Clement has told you that she is to leave Sanditon.
No. Why?
All she would say is that she is expected in London.
I think Charlotte had somewhat of an idea of why Lady Susan is going back to London. I'm sure Samuel has an idea, but he just doesn't want to pressure Lady Susan to explain herself, why she's going back to London. But we all know why.
And regrettably, there is nothing I can do to change her mind.
But he's very sad, and Charlotte understands that. She knows that Lady Susan found happiness with Samuel, and Samuel found happiness with Lady Susan. Charlotte supports this couple. She's you two seem to be a lovely couple, and she wants her friend Lady Susan to be happy, of course. Kind of a little bit bad that Lady Susan didn't tell Charlotte just yet, but hopefully she does, because finding out about it first from Samuel instead of Lady Susan herself, it's kind of bad, but in a way it's a good thing, because now she can prepare herself once Lady Susan tells Charlotte the news.
May I pass on a message to Mr. Colburn, Miss Heywood?
Thank you, Mrs. Wheatley. But I would sooner deliver it in person.
It's best if Charlotte say the message herself to Alexander instead of Mr. Whitley. If she did tell Mr. Whitley what the message is about, it would have disrupted Alexander moment with Lydia if they're still doing it. We don't know where Alexander is at right now, Is he riding by himself, or he is actually riding with Lydia this morning? Charlotte doesn't want to get in between Alexander and Lydia if they are still a couple. That's the end of part 1 of episode 6 of season 3 review of Sanditon. I hope you enjoyed it. Give a like if you enjoyed this. If you don't, goodbye. If you have any comments about the first 15 minutes of this episode, feel free to jot them down in the comment section below. It's never too late to subscribe, and if you're new here, if you didn't know, after finishing Sanditon, I'll be going back to One Heart to Heart. Season 10 is coming around next month, and I will start filming the reviews for Season 10, and they should start uploading onto my channel sometime late August, early September. I just need time to start filming, and basically get a head start. So once I start uploading officially on my channel, it will be like every week. Will be consistent, hopefully. So there's that. So watch out for that. If you want to stick around after Sanditon, I will be going back to One Heart to Heart. I missed the Hardys. Been a while, so I'm really excited for season 10 of that show. So yeah, there's that. I will see you very soon. 3 more to go. I'm a little bit emotional, but I'm so glad that I did the show. I survived through the hate, the haters from season 1. You know, it's a show, and I always wanted to be fair to season 1, 2, and 3. And I think they did a great job. I mean, it could have been worse, you know? Like, we could have not seen Charlotte find love again, you know? Like, we shouldn't have season 2 and 3, but we did, and I think as fans, we should be grateful for that. So anyway, see you around, and moving on to One Heart to Heart. Bye.